Okay, and now a quick post-retreat treat on the origins of subscription home entertainment. And you can see my TV remote control here. It's got Prime Video, Netflix, HBO, and Hulu, all subscription home entertainment systems. Well, let's start with the granddaddy, more than 50 years old now, Home Box Office, or HBO as it's now called. Initially 365 subscribers in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. But here's a picture from 1969 of a theater on Long Island, and notice it has a sign that says, "Stop Pay TV." Did someone get wind of the onset of HBO shortly thereafter? But here's something even earlier, 1964 on the West Coast, and this is another theater with a "Stop Pay TV" sign. And here's an article from the New York Times in 1954, before Home Box Office was a glimmer in anyone's eye, and they talk about box office in home TV, and Coast Theaters trying to stop it. Well, what were they talking about? Well, right here in Palm Springs in 1953, this is a product called a telemeter, and it was for offering special television programming, and you actually put coins into it to watch it. And before that, Zenith had this system called Phone Vision in 1951, and even earlier they had planned it, a system for getting pay TV in the home. Here's the birthplace of cable television in the United States in 1948. Some people may say it happened elsewhere, but I happen to favor this one. But we Americans tend to be America-centric. Here is something from 1937 in TV and shortwave world, and it's showing a plug for getting television at home from a subscription service. Now, where did that come from? Well, here is a subscription radio service, broadcast relay service, because radios were too expensive, and so people offered a service where you would just get a speaker in your home and you could subscribe to signals from radio. Here is a patent by Reginald Fessenden, who is famous as a radio pioneer, but this one's for television, and he's talking about encoding of television signal so that it can only be received by people that you want it to be received by. So this is sort of the first conditional access system in 1922. And here is a story in 1920, so the idea of having the relay of radio wasn't just in the UK. This is Pennsylvania. When KDKA went on the air and did their election returns, there was a phone company that picked up the service and provided it to subscribers. And here is a service that was going to be offered in 1907. It was called the Telharmonium, and electrical music synthesizer. I say electrical rather than electronic because this was before the electronic era. Instead, it had these giant alternator rotors that could make tones that were combined to create the sound of any instrument, and the idea was going to be that restaurants could subscribe to that music. Unfortunately, because the alternators were so powerful, when they introduced this to telephone lines, everyone who had any telephone call that was adjacent to those lines would hear the music rather than the telephone call. So that didn't go very far. But that takes us back to 1897. Now, this is even earlier. In 1893, a service in Budapest called the Telephone Hermondo, and this was sort of the first radio station, although it wasn't wireless. It used wires, but people read the news into microphones. They had entertainment programming. They had advertising, so everything you would expect of a radio station. And that followed on this service, which was called the Théâtrophone in France. This was a service offered to subscribers in Paris, this nice listening system. And that followed the first subscription entertainment system of which I'm aware, which is this, the theatrical promoters Matos and Valdez in Lisbon provided a service where you could listen to the opera at home, and you could subscribe to that. It was based on some work that was done the previous year to allow the King of Portugal to listen to an opera in the palace when he wasn't allowed to leave the palace because he was mourning for his sister. This service, by the way, also has the first documentary evidence of the use of consumer headphones. But even earlier than that, this is something from Punch, there's the idea of people paying for a subscription to get music. Well, where did it come from? Okay, let's start counting up rather than down. This is an image that was published in 1673, and the idea was that there was this tyrant, Dionysios, and he would listen to the sounds of prisoners in his prison via acoustic ducts. And so this illustration is from Phonergia Nova by Athanasius Kircher. And a little later, 1778, in Paris, we have an actual subscription service, but this is not a subscription to entertainment. This is a subscription to water. The Perrier brothers put in a water pump and a water system, but a monk, Dom Gotti, had the idea that, well, if there's a pipe, you could bang on the pipe and people at the other end would hear something. And so you could transmit information through the pipes. And if you could transmit information, well, why couldn't you transmit sounds? And so this appeared in 1787 in this magazine, Variété Littéraire. And it's by a Nicolas Touillou. Touillou means pipe in French, and so Mr. Pipe was suggesting that you could subscribe to opera music via pipes coming to your home, and that, as far as I can tell, is the earliest suggestion of subscription home entertainment. So now you know. And a PDF of these slides is available at bit.ly/HPA23-PRT, as in post-retreat treat. Thanks very much.